Hey, this is the Mad Scientist Guy, and welcome to the channel. So tonight I want to talk about astrophotography in light-polluted cities, which is probably where you are. If you are fortunate enough to be in a dark area, well, good on you, that's great. But for the most part, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find places to image because of so much light pollution. So what do we do? How do we get our astrophotography going and get good results when we're battling with light pollution? Well, one way that you can do this is to pick your targets and to pick your targets that are very bright and very big. And the reason that that is important is because that increases the signal to noise ratio, and it starts to overwhelm the light pollution. And if you don't do that and you're trying to do really faint objects, and let's say you're doing RGB and you're not doing narrowband, or you don't have any filter at all, well then the issue is that the light pollution becomes the signal. So one way to overcome this is to choose brighter objects. But when we do this, where do we start? How do we filter through all of the possible objects out there and efficiently pick targets so that we can photograph and get good results in the city? Well, today I'm going to show you how to do that using two tools. I'm going to be using an app for the phone called Polarscope Align Pro, and then also use Stellarium. And I actually use them in combination, and I'll show you how next. So first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the app, the Polarscope Align Pro. Now, if you don't have the Pro version, it'll probably work just fine, but I went ahead and paid the $3. So let's go into this app and I'll show you how this works. These three buttons at the right will expand and show you additional selections. And so what I'm looking for is this DSL right here. The great thing about this is you can narrow your search down and show only what you want to do. So I want to go through a couple of them that I have done here. So for the moment, I have Messier objects, Caldwell, NGC, and IC. And then I don't have the rest of these on here because I'm not really interested in named stars and a number of these others. But this gives me a pretty good broad band of what I'm trying to do, which is mainly galaxies and nebula and things like that. And then you can specifically look within those subcategories on the object type. And so here I have three selected: the diffuse, the planetary, and the galaxies. And so, but you can also do dark nebula, but what I'm trying to show are bright objects, so I'm going to leave dark nebula off, although supernova remnants might be a good thing to look at. Maybe we can get a bright one. Now, the next thing is that I like this, all these filters here, because, for example, if you want a really bright object and you have your best chance of doing a good imaging, I would suggest doing something as high in the sky as possible. So here I put a minimum of 25 degrees. And that'll keep it off of the horizon. Then the next thing is the most important if you're trying to do bright objects, and that is the minimum magnitude. Now, curiously, the lower the magnitude, the brighter the object. And so this one, you're going to go back and forth. It'd be great to have something around a magnitude 4 or something like that. That'd be great. But I have been playing around with this, and for this first run, we'll just leave it at 8. Now, you can do the rest of these if you want. Currently, I don't have them on. And then here, the sorting is critical because I want to sort by magnitude because I want the brightest objects in the sky. So I have here by magnitude, ascending, and done. And then we just say show data. And here you have the results it shows the absolute brightest one we have in the sky would be Andromeda, and the Orion, and on the way down. And so actually we only have around 10 in these results. Oh, 11, it says right on top, I didn't see that. And that is a huge time saver because now we have isolated some of the brightest in the sky. And then now what we can do is we can go into Stellarium and we can review each one of these. And then I'm going to show you another tip once we're in Stellarium on how to do something similar. Now, there's one other thing I forgot to mention is that when we look at these objects, I go back in here and show data, that's showing for the current time. And so current time by default, and that's not going to help us when we're planning for a session at night. So what we do is we go back to the home screen and select the manual time. And then I'm just going to type in here, let's say 10 o'clock. And then that will adjust our list. And so now we're down to 3 because the Andromeda Galaxy, I already knew that there was something amiss because it's not really the season for Andromeda Galaxy. And so now we have 3 that meet the criteria, which is quite a bit smaller. And so if we want to expand that, then go back in here to the minimum magnitude, and here you might say, well, okay, maybe I'll go about 9 and see if we can grab one. I want a little bit more. And so then we have far more. That brought up 23. And so it's still sorted by magnitude. We still have Bode's Galaxy and C59, Ghost of Jupiter. And so that way you can, if you have too many results, then definitely lower the magnitude. But here we just didn't have quite enough, so we have to compromise maybe and go up to a magnitude of 8. And so with that being said, let's head back into Stellarium. Here we are in Stellarium for iPad, and I think this is pretty handy. And then we're going to take this slider and we're going to put it on to about 10 o'clock at night, something similar. There's a little bit of 11, maybe I can get it back. And so now you can get an idea of what's going to be at night and on your imaging session. But what we want to do is we want to go into the left hamburger here on the left-hand side, settings, advanced, and then you can limit the magnitude. So if it's off, you see far more. And as you bring this down, things start disappearing because they're only going to show just the brightest one. And so depending on what your objective is for that night, you can focus on just what you can and cannot see. So let's do a quick search for the Bode's Galaxy, and then we'll go back to the advanced setting here. And you can see that if you limit it too much, then the label goes away. So here we have limited down to about 6.8, and then there it is right there. So you have a great tool now to both do a preview and to see how it would look for your particular scope. Maybe you want to do something like this or whatever. But it also just flat shows you less information, and a lot of times less is more, because now you can focus in doing only what is the most useful to you. And in this case, our objective is to have the highest signal, so therefore the brightest and the biggest object. And so anyway, this is another tool that you can use in conjunction with the Polarscope app, or you could even use it by yourself.